the Madman!
Welcome to the top custom Hearthstone cards of the week. Let's begin with two birds. A hunter 1-mana spell. Summon two 1/2 birds for your opponent. Add 1 stone to your hand. 1 stone is a 1-mana spell. Deal 2 damage to 2 enemy minions and the enemy hero. So if you cast the two together, you'll pay 2 mana to kill the 2 birds you summoned, although remember, it's random targets. So if you do it on an empty board, 2 mana to basically deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Design 4 stars, balance 1 star. I do believe that this kind of idiom, the saying of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, that's basically the language design on this card, it can translate between languages. I do think that you shouldn't make it as obvious as 1 stone is the card that you generate. The card is on the weak side, that's why the balance is 1. I suggest making the stone be 0 mana. This would be in addition to Quest Hunter, and it's actually a little bit dangerous because it gives the opponent targets that you can hit with your spells that sometimes, like, it's actually hard to 2 birds collateral damage. That's a lot of damage, potentially. And then you just finish it off with a stone at the end. I don't think that's overpowered. Next up, we got a Priest Fire spell. It's Campfire. Discover something to pass the time. End your turn. You can eat some food, restore 12 health to your hero, restore 6 to your opponent. You can gather the supplies, discover 3 spells, randomly give 1 to your opponent. I think Discover is used poorly there because it should be more like generate 3 spells or gain 3 random priest spells or something like that. And then there's Tell a Story. Resurrect a random friendly minion. Do the same for your opponent. Design 2 stars, balance 5 stars. I'm giving the design 2 stars mainly because end your turn is something interesting. It should basically be on dangerous combo cards where you don't want to be able to cast like something else after that. The Campfire ending your turn is like clearly flavorful in that you're relaxing, you're done. But there's no real reason to have to end your turn here. I feel like it's unnecessary. The balance is fine, mainly because of eat some food. I think 2 mana restore 12 is basically the main use of this card, with some fringe uses otherwise. There's the gathered supplies, which is gain 0 card advantage, because you gain 2, but they gain 1. And there's Tell a Story, which is like a resurrect on both sides, which is just worse resurrect. Strange to have reverse power creep. Next, we've got Zephyrus the Advisor. 2 mana 3/2. If there are perfect cards in your deck, draw them. Design 1 star, balance question mark. Zephyrus was a 2 mana 3/2 where you got to discover the perfect answer. Zephyrus would discover only from basic and classic cards, Zephyrus original, because it would be far too difficult to program the expansion cards in. There's no way to ever program a check for that unless the designers spent literally hundreds? Would it take thousands of hours? Did you know that this is only going to be the second hardest card to program? I don't know. This one might actually be harder, but there's one more coming up later that'll also blow your mind. So therefore, Zephyrus the Advisor would presumably also only be able to draw from the core set cards, and therefore it would be extremely difficult to ever draw the perfect cards in your deck. It's so hard to like really talk about this. Sometimes it's going to be different class cards, so you wouldn't draw them. Sometimes you wouldn't be at the right mana to play it. You would only be able to get the core set. It's just extremely non-obvious, and most of the time nothing would happen. There's no way you could ever make a card like this. Next up, we got Orisa. It's a warrior legendary mech. 6 mana 5/7 taunt, battlecry. For the rest of the game, your armor takes 1 less damage from all sources, but not less than 1. Wow, that's a really cool effect. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars, and it's the trump card of the week. I found it very flavorful that your armor just becomes tougher when this legendary comes into play. It's like the legendary like taught you how to make your tanking more effective, which makes a lot of sense for Orisa. Orisa, I was first thinking like, oh, this could just be a placeholder name in terms of you could easily design another card with a different name, which would have the same effect. But then, you know, maybe you could have a Overwatch crossover into Hearthstone, because there's Diablo crossover into Hearthstone. This can be compared to Cariel, where instead of having, it's just if you have any armor, and once you have no armor, problem fixed, all the damage is taken one less. And if you double the battle cry or you play multiple Orisa, I imagine you would take like 2 less damage and 3 less damage. Would be interesting, but probably impractical and not actually that powerful. If this is found to be a cool enough effect, it could be a hero card, similar to Cariel. But yeah, I really like the idea that armor, you know, armor is supposed to be tougher than health. Your armor taking less damage makes a lot of sense, and then like your armor could become gold armor. Next up we have Tess the Enema Collector. Small typo. Rogue 6 mana 6/6 legendary. Battle cry: for the rest of the game, cards from other classes cost 1 less. Infuse 2, they cost 2 less. Design 2 stars, balance 5 stars. First of all, I'll address the obvious that should read Anima Collector. There is a slightly different meaning for Anima. Infuse 2 on a card this big just doesn't really make sense because the infuse is almost trivial, so it's almost as if this card doesn't have Infuse 2. Might as well just read Battlecry: for the rest of the game, cards cost 2 less. It's not quite the same as that because you could easily top deck her, and Infuse 2 is a lot easier to pull off, but if you're gonna like make the effort to add a mechanic to it, it should be a larger number for this high a mana cost. Tess Original likes having cards from other classes, so it makes sense to have another Tess-like card, I suppose. Though the flavor of why Tess is collecting anima isn't really explored, meh. It could be done. It might see play in Thief Rogue. It doesn't have to be Tess, it could be someone else. It's just overall kind of a eh. Next up, we've got a Yog Saron. Everyone loves Yog Saron. What are we doing to Yog Saron today? Yog Saron, Chaos Incarnate, 10 mana 7/5, Battlecry. Play the rest of your deck. Targets chosen randomly. Okay, design 1 star, balance 1 star. So the most obvious use of this card that I could think of would be in Quest Priest. After finding your quest, after finishing the quest, you could just play Yog Saron the turn afterwards and you win the game because you'll inevitably get to the Purified Shard and then cast it. 1-man board flip, win the game next turn, a lot of the cases. Just way too powerful. Sure, you would have to build your deck around it, but it'd be mostly an easy build around if you didn't have symmetrical effects or like destroy the board effects. Demon Hunter can play a bunch of buff attack cards, and then you hit him for a lot after playing Yog Saron. But there's so many different possibilities. Next we have a Marionette Cross, a Rogue Shadow spell. 10 mana, legendary spell. Equip an enemy minion. Oh my god, that is so cool. Design 5 stars, balance 1 star. This was almost a trump card of the week. Remornia sets the idea of what does it mean to have a living weapon. Well, with Marionette Cross, you target an enemy minion and then it's yours with their attack and then durability equal to the health points. Really cool flavor. It's a removal, hard removal, plus silence, and it gets you a huge weapon. The big problem with this card is exactly the Naga Swift Scale card. That amount of tempo swing is gigantic. So perhaps Marionette Cross could be printed after Swift Scale Naga rotates out, and then maybe you'd have to deal with this in Wild. Maybe the card would get nerfed in Wild. Maybe this card also makes sense in Warrior, because you like are literally picking up the enemy minion and then like smashing the opponent with it. So, very, very cool idea. Unfortunately, as is, it's a little bit unworkable due to Naga Swift Scale, which is also unfortunate because clearly they knew that if they printed Naga Swift Scale, it would forever make high-cost rogue spells have a potential problem with them. Always gotta watch out when you print out those cards that make it so that some design space closes. From Priest, it's Mind Link, a 7-mana legendary spell. Shadow. Shuffle your deck into your opponent's deck. For the rest of the game, you both share the same deck. So cool, design 4 stars, balance 2 stars. The problem, and this is kind of both the design and balance problem, is this is 7 mana do nothing. And yet, I can't really lower the mana cost of it because it's so disruptive. I'm like trying to salvage the idea that Mind Link is a really cool name, and it's clearly a shadow type effect. And like what you're doing is so flavorful. You're sharing the same mind, and now you're all drawing from the same deck. But it is such a tempo loss to play this card. So I was thinking maybe you put this effect on a minion. Unfortunately, you would lose the Mind Link, like, cool name, but that might just be how you have to do it. Otherwise, you'd like lower the mana cost maybe by 1 to 6, and then like the lower you lower it, the more it becomes just too disruptive. So really cool card. It's just very, very difficult to like actually make this not be a terrible legendary, because in truth, you wouldn't really want to play this card even at 1 mana. And I mean that because then you're just both playing the same deck, but you have the downside that, you know, you had to spend a card to make the symmetrical effect happen. So it's in a weird spot where the mana cost is 6 mana or maybe even 7 mana too high, because I'm not even sure if you played this at 0 mana you would play it, but it's a cool effect. Surely you'd have to put this on a minion. There is a little bit of an advantage instead of the symmetrical effect in that you know it's coming, so you could hoard some cards that are especially good if you were to both draw from the same deck. So there is some advantage there. Alright, next up we have the card that may possibly, not certain, may possibly be even more mind-blowing to program than the earlier Zephyrus card. Paladins, a new hero is born, 7 mana. Replace your hero with a friendly minion. Gain armor equal to its original health. Any effect becomes passive. Battle cries become your hero power. The Countess, the 7/7, gains you 7 armor, and then your hero power becomes 2 mana. If your deck has no neutral cards, add 3 legendary invitations to your hand. Okay, that's pretty OP. Blademaster Okami. Battle cry, secretly choose to counter the next minion or spell your opponent plays while this is active. Alright, that's pretty overpowered. How would you even program the fact that you were the one that is, you know, having an Okami out? Nozdormu, wow, it became a passive hero power. Players only have 15 seconds to take their turns. How would you know when to make a hero power passive and when not to? And of course, really surprisingly overpowered, is you could just have Worgen Infiltrator and then play a new hero is born, and then your hero is stealth forever. Well, until you attack with it, which is kind of overpowered. So there's a lot of problems with this. Design 1 star, balance 1 star. I almost wanted to give the design a higher amount, because if you could have a very limited subsection of cards, for example, Paladin Legendaries, excellent suggestion, replace your hero with a friendly Paladin Legendary, that becomes less to program in. There's still a number of things that are not going to work out. Even if you were to only take, of all the cards in Hearthstone, you were only to focus on the Paladin Legendaries, there's still way too much to worry about. What happens if you're Colossal? I don't know. Cool in theory from the design perspective, and might even spawn some sort of cool idea in the future. But for now, there's no way that could work. Last but not least, we've got a card whose design is overpowered, and the amount of effort that got into this card is ridiculous. Oh, that reminds me. You know what else is overpowered? A thank you to Weeble for sponsoring this video. They're offering an overpowered promotion. You might have seen me in an earlier video flaunting the free $34 that you can get for opening up an account with them and depositing at least 1 cent from the United States, and you are guaranteed to get at least $34. But the deal has gotten even better, because instead of just getting the 4 fractional shares worth $7,000 to $3,000 a piece, you could get 8 or 10 of them. That'd be a nice speed boost on your investing journey, which I firmly believe in. Long-term investing, $34, gonna grow to $100 in, a decade or two. Easy peasy. If you've got another brokerage account, great. Open up a Webull one as well. They're offering you the free money in order to try it out. And it's got a great interface. It's good. I use it for my own investing, which I take very seriously. I have a Patreon where I talk about my own financial journeys. And hey, if you want to support this channel, the free money doesn't just go to you, it goes to me as well. Let's all get free money. Use the link below, sign up for a Webull account. We've got Haltia the Grand Lion. It's a Paladin Priest dual class card. 10 mana, 8/10 legendary beast. Battle cry if your deck has no neutral cards. Rain holy fire on all enemies. And you've got the author creating this cool little sound effect when played. Witness the glory of Haltia. Design 5 stars, balance 4 stars, and it's the trump card of the week. What? We already had one. Well, it doesn't matter. These two cards were both so cool that I decided to just make them both the trump card of the week. This guy went the extra effort of creating a sound effect, play sound effect with Haltia, which sounds appropriately holy and divine and regal, and I am a musician, so I was like, okay, sure, that's cool. And he even made the card text Rain Holy Fire. Paladins were the class that didn't want any neutral cards. Priest is the class with the Holy Fire in him. So this is how the two got together and created a dual class card, and they're both very Holy Fire oriented. It just makes so much sense. Very good flavor design. The balance is weak. I wonder why this is 10 mana 8/10. Did the card design author think that a 10 mana 10/10 would be too powerful? So it's like, oh, I guess we'll nerf the attack by 2. This could be a 10 mana 10/10. It would still be too weak, probably. It could be an 8 mana 8/8. But yeah, somewhere between 8/8, 10/10/10, 10/10/10 just has the very good aesthetic look. This compares to the more dash card from Mage, where 10 damage dealt to all enemies. That used to cost 10, by the way. This deals 5, also has a pretty heavy restriction, but also gains you like basically full health. Similar to the Nathrius, where instead of like OTKing the opponent though, you're just dealing 5 damage to the enemy hero, so it's a lot more fair. And fair is in line with Paladin. Fair but balanced, theoretically. So really cool cards this week. Cards good enough that I thought 2 were Trump Card of the Week worthy, and even though there were a bunch of cards that had no purpose and wouldn't even leave the design room, they would, at the very least, be put into like a small design note, like, this is completely unworkable, but if we could find a way to work it, it would be really cool.